What the Cincinnati Bengals did last season was incredible, going from dead last in the NFL to the Super Bowl in just 1 year. They won 10 games in the regular season, then 3 more in the playoffs, and they were oh so close to finishing it off. But if you're a fan of, say, another bottom-feeding NFL team, don't expect a magical run like this to happen anytime soon. In fact, it may never happen again. Let's find out why, right after this. I bet you're wondering why my old ass is throwing a baseball. That's because this summer, me and a bunch of YouTubers are playing pros in baseball. Yeah, that's happening. And as you can tell, I gotta get in shape. And getting in shape doesn't just start with hitting the cage, it starts with the right meals. That's why I'm here to tell you about Factor, a meal service that makes meeting your nutrition goals easier than ever by delivering fresh, dietitian-approved meals right to your doorstep. Factor menus are updated weekly and include over 27 meals and 33 add-on options. And you can customize your diet plan: keto, calorie smart, chef's choice, vegan, or veggie. It's all here. Plus, no prep or mess. These meals are ready to go. I drink one of their smoothies in the morning for breakfast and then zap one of their delicious meals for lunch. They taste great and are low calorie, allowing me to hit some tanks. So after this video, head to go.factor75.com/5points120 and use code 5points120 to get $120 off your first 5 weeks of meals. Again, that's go.factor75.com/5points120 from the link below and use code 5points120 to get $120 off your first 5 weeks of meals. Part 1. Historical precedent. There's a reason that Super Bowl 36 is such a seminal game in NFL history. It was a matchup of 2 underdogs. Just a couple years earlier, the Rams had gone from worst to first in 1999, turning a 4-12 season into an impossible 13-3 campaign, where a former Hy-Vee employee won league and Super Bowl MVP. 2 years later, the underdogs were now the juggernauts of the NFL, 3 years into the greatest show on turf. The Rams were pitted against the NFL's newest version of Cinderella, the New England Patriots, and some guy named Tom Brady. The Patriots won, and that meant twice in 3 seasons, a team that had finished last place in their division had won a Super Bowl the next season. For a brief period, it felt like anyone could win the Super Bowl at any time. That, of course, was not true. The underdog Patriots went on to become the most unstoppable team of the 21st century. They became an institution. In the past 2 decades, between the 2001 Pats and the 2021 Bengals, only one team has gone from last in their division to the Super Bowl. That was the 2017 Eagles, who are a special case. They finished last place in the NFC East in 2016, but they weren't a bad team. They finished 7-9, but with a point differential of plus 26. A winning team in disguise. We are led to believe that the NFL is a league of parity, but that's only true when we're comparing it to the NBA or college football, where the same tired handful of teams win every year. In reality, teams just don't make the Super Bowl out of thin air. It's generally a long process where a squad gains experience through heartbreaking playoff losses until they finally get over the hump. What the Bengals did from going from AFC North pushovers to mastering the conference is historically unprecedented. Part 2. Slim margin of error in the playoffs. The Bengals were far from dominant on the AFC side of their playoff bracket. Their first matchup came against the Las Vegas Raiders, one of the few teams in the tournament that was a bigger underdog than them. The Bengals won by a touchdown, their biggest margin of victory in the entire postseason. Of course, you could argue that the Bengals shouldn't have even been up 7 points in the first place. In the second quarter, a referee blew a whistle that should have stopped a play that ended up as a touchdown. He also shouldn't have blown the whistle. The play was a temporary controversy that faded away when we all collectively forgot the Raiders even made it to the playoffs. But it was a bit of good luck that helped Cincy. Later in Tennessee, the Bengals escaped with a 3-point win that was mostly thanks to a stifling defense and the clutch right leg of rookie kicker Evan McPherson. But if not for 3 atrocious mistakes by Ryan Tannehill, the 1-seed Titans probably should have taken care of business. In a more hostile environment in Kansas City, the Bengals, in even more improbable fashion, snatched victory. from the jaws of defeat. Cincy mounted an epic 18-point comeback, quickly gaining steam on offense while simultaneously figuring out Patrick Mahomes on the other side of the ball. In overtime, the Bengals looked like they were dead in the water after they committed the most unforgivable sin, losing the coin toss. But even that wasn't enough to stifle the Cardiac Cats. McPherson swung that leg and sent them to the Super Bowl. Obviously, their luck evened out in Los Angeles. And this is not to take away from a magical playoff run, but winning 3 playoff games, including 2 on the road, by a total margin of just 13 points is a very difficult task to repeat, much less do. The last team to make it to the Super Bowl with a margin of plus 13 or less in 3 games was, let me see here, oh, it's never happened before the Bengals. The closest comparison is the 2007 Giants, who won their first 3 games by a margin of just 17 points, and trust me, even that was way too close for comfort. Part 3, batting 1,000. Joe Burrow getting injured was a good thing. Hold on, let me explain. It's hard to say that anyone tearing their ACL and MCL in their rookie year is a good thing, but I'm going to try to make the case. When Joe Burrow blew out his knee against Washington in Week 11 of his rookie season, it ended what was virtually a best-case scenario for the Bengals. 1. Burrow was playing well. 2. The team was still losing. The 2020 Cincinnati Bengals were never going to challenge for a playoff spot. In fact, at the time of Burrow's injury, the team had accumulated all of 2 wins. The Bengals finished the season winning 2 out of their final 6 games without their number 1 overall pick, getting a win from Brandon Allen and Ryan Finley, who combined for 6 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. If Burrow had stayed healthy, it's very conceivable that the Bengals could have gone 3-3 down the stretch, or possibly 4-2. But it's a good thing they didn't. First of all, losing his rookie quarterback just 10 games into his career meant that head coach Zach Taylor was essentially given a free pass for 2020. The Bengals made a fairly unpopular decision to retain Zach Taylor. Hell, we've established on this channel that back-to-back losing seasons is usually a death sentence for head coaches. But remember, we're talking about a very idiosyncratic front office that stood by Marvin Lewis for 16 seasons. In a rare bit of bad luck turned good luck combined with the stubborn loyalty of their ownership, the Bengals benefited from an unlikely confluence of events that resulted in a maligned head coach getting a 3rd chance. But that's not the only good thing that came out of the Burrow injury. Only winning 4 games meant the Bengals would pick 5th in the 2021 draft. The general assumption was that the Bengals would be drafting Oregon tackle Penei Sewell to keep Joe Burrow from being repeatedly slapped in the face by defenders like Chris Rock at the Oscars. Instead, the Bengals chose to reunite Burrow and former LSU teammate, wideout Jamar Chase, bucking every ounce of conventional wisdom. The Bengals eventually did address their offensive line with a 2nd-round pick on a tackle. But from our vantage point in 2022, Chase was the right pick. Burrow and Chase hooked up for nearly 1,800 yards and 20 touchdowns in 2019 in college. 2 years later, they put up 1,455 yards and 13 touchdowns in the NFL, earning Chase Rookie of the Year honors. Without their relationship at LSU, Burrow and Chase may not have clicked right away, and Jamar was routinely the best player on the field for several of the Bengals' victories. It's possible that Penei Sewell could turn into a Hall of Fame offensive lineman, but he wasn't dragging a 4-12 team to the Super Bowl. Burrow's injury in a roundabout way was a major reason the Bengals won the AFC a year later. Without tanking, there is no Chase. The Bengals also did something that was very un-Bengals. They opened their wallet. Mike Brown's team has historically pinched pennies when it comes to free agency, instead preferring to reward in-house talent. But in the 2020 and 2021 offseason, the Bengals took some big swings and connected on a lot of them. Cincy's first big splash in 2020 was a 4-year, $53 million deal for defensive tackle DJ Reader, who really didn't contribute that year, but helped them tank. A year later, however, Reader played 15 games, notched 2 sacks in the regular season, and added another in the playoffs. In 2021, Cincy opted to let Carl Lawson walk, a controversial move, and replaced him with former Saints edge rusher Trey Hendrickson. Hendrickson backed up a strong 2020 season with 14 sacks in 2021, adding 3.5 more in the playoffs. Their big money signings were successful, and their smaller scale pickups proved fruitful. Chidobe Awuzie, Mike Hilton, and Larry Ogunjobi all helped the Bengals defense turn into a middle-of-the-road unit, good enough to make them a playoff team. The bottom line is that the Bengals nailed their draft picks while concurrently batting close to 1,000 in free agency. And when you look at other teams swinging and missing all over the place, that's really hard to do. Ultimately, the Bengals' magical season can't be repeated, not because of the odds against it, the circumstances around it, or the luck involved and the perfect storm of roster moves. No, it can't be repeated because ultimately it was defeated by a team that did the exact opposite. The Rams spent big on free agents. They traded for high-priced assets. They gave up their #1 overall pick and his huge contract for an older QB who was also a #1 pick and had a huge contract. They sacrificed their draft picks and future for an all-in run that just happened to work out at the expense of the Bengals. So, to the Bengals, their turnaround may have been a fluke, but they're here now. Let's see if they can sustain it.